at Journey Chick over on Instagram. Welcome to another edition of Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I recap live trials. So you don't have to sit through the trial as it's occurring on YouTube because some of it can be incredibly boring. I'm just going to give you the highlights. So right now I'm covering the case of Alex Murdaugh. But first, you know what day it is. Friday. What do we do on Friday? We get up. We get out of our, first we put our Alex shirt. We put our Alaska shirt on. Hey, and we Friday dance, ooh, Friday dance. I'm making up my own song to avoid copyright issues. Okay, yep. Now, if somebody says that's their song, they're lying. Okay, coffee time, yes. And I will try not to dribble. So, yes, I'm feeling better, thank God. Whatever that was, it went away. It was, just a cold, but man. So, still working on the diamond painting. Let me see if I can show you. Let me move a couple of things around. See if I can show you the progress I have made. I don't think I've shown you in a while. I've been working on the head of the dragon and trying to get it to just so. What I have done so far. Yep. Okay, so I've been working on, it's kind of underneath here, the head of the dragon. Putting in some sparkle there. Let me see if I can get it closer to the camera so you guys can see the sparkle in his face. Yeah. Or her. Maybe it's a female dragon. I don't know. So, okay. Actually, you know what? This is actually a good opportunity to turn the painting this way because I need to finish this part, right? Yep. Let's talk about what happened on week 3, day 4 of the Alex Murdaugh trial. It was sort of a rinse repeat day because a lot of this testimony we have heard before. Well, all of it we had heard before during the in-camera hearing where they all testified for the judge so he could rule about whether the jury was going to hear this testimony. But there was a little drama in the courtroom yesterday, and it had to do with Alex Murdaugh's relatives. His sister Lynn apparently brought in a book that she handed to Alex's lawyers or his paralegal and said, give this to Alex. And Alex was already in his jail cell back at the prison before they were able to confiscate it. What book was it? John Grisham's novel, The Judge's List. So I looked this up. I'm like, what is that book about? Let's find out. Well, first of all, John Grisham. I love John Grisham, but it's a series about this investigator Lacey Stoltz out of Florida. It's going to be out of Florida, right? So she is following the trail of a serial killer and closes in on a shocking suspect, a sitting judge, in one of the best crime reads of the year, bristling with high-tech detail and shivering with suspense. Okay. So apparently this judge, let's see, is one of the most cunning of all serial killers. He knows forensics, police procedure, and most important, he knows the law. Does that sound like Alex Murdaugh, maybe? You think? Okay, he has a list with the names of his victims and targets, all unsuspecting people, unlucky enough to have crossed his path and wronged him in some way. How can Lacey, why do I keep saying Lucy? How can Lacey pursue him without becoming the next name on his list? The judge's list. And if you want it on audiobook, it's 11 hours and 36 minutes of your life. Yes. So Alex didn't get to read this book, apparently. And his sister was quite, defensive about it. She wanted him to have this book. Anyway, then we understand that earlier in the week, Buster, apparently he took the stand on Monday. I did not realize this. Outside the presence of the jury and testified. Now, I'm going to look that up and I'll give you that on Monday. What did he have to say? But I don't know if he's going to be allowed to testify or not. So apparently when he took the stand, he made an inappropriate gesture towards Mark Tinsley, who's the witness that's on the stand, took the stand last yesterday and is on the stand for cross-examination this morning. He is the attorney for the Mallory Beach family from the boat crash case. Buster is not happy with him because, Buster was also personally sued in the boat crash case and did recently settle the case with the Mallory Beach family. And in exchange, the part of the settlement was that he give up all of his rights, or most of his rights, to his mother's approximately $5 million estate. Yeah. So he's not happy with his lawyer. He was sued because he loaned his brother his identification, which his brother used to buy beer, which they all get intoxicated. Paul's driving the boat intoxicated. They run into this Archer Creek Bridge, and Mallory's ejected from the boat and killed. Horrible set of circumstances back in 2019. So, like I said, all right, so let's talk about who took the stand yesterday. Now, of course, they started out the day with that FBI agent cross-examination, and it was very quick because, nobody could make heads or tails of that stuff. Anyway, yeah, so let me dive in. The extraction of the OnStar data and the infotainment center data, except that it proved that he was with Alex was with his mother for, you can argue that he was with his mother for 21 minutes based on that data. So, do you think Alex knew that his infotainment center had data on it? I would not know that. And I'm an attorney. I would not know that. I mean, it makes sense. It also could do location data, but apparently it didn't have any location data for the date of June 7th, the date of the murders, which is unfortunate. That could have really sealed the deal. Any case, so first we hear from Chris Wilson. Now, I'm watching Alex's demeanor, and it changed noticeably when Chris Wilson comes into the courtroom. This was his best friend, Chris Wilson. They were buddies. They would talk 2-3 times a day on the phone. And you could see that Alex just kind of went into himself. Well, after, first his attorney whispers something to him, like, hey, your buddy's here. Look really, look really sad. And he did. All of a sudden, he just and then, of course, he's crying during the testimony. Appropriately emotional during Chris Wilson's testimony. So Chris Wilson, pretty much, we heard the same thing that he said the other day for the judge about how they did this one case together and they each got a fee from the large settlement in the case. Alex's fee was $792,000, and it was paid to Alex in a check that Alex put into a Forge account and spent it all. But then Alex, his firm was on to him, so he tells Chris, hey, I've got to put this money back into your trust account and have you make the check out to my law firm. So because he didn't want to get discovered. So he sends over a check for $600,000, and then he still owes the $192,000, and he says that's in a separate annuity that I can't touch right now. So Chris, believing him, trusting him, fronts him the $192,000 so he can cut the $792,000 trust account check over to PMPED. Well, Chris Wilson never got that $192,000 back. Nope. Yeah. And he was very, very disappointed in his friend. He finds out, he gets a call from the law firm in September. And he's told that, hey, we discovered that Alex has been, embezzling money from clients, from fees, and he said he was just shocked. So he said, well, I need to talk to him in person. So he goes out to the mother's house where Alex is staying. Apparently Alex has never spent another night at Moselle. Never spent another night. So he goes out to confront Alex, and Alex starts crying, goes in the house, comes out with, paper towel, and he's blubbering and saying that he was addicted to opioids for 20 years. So now the jury knows, hey, this guy was in rehab right after he gets fired. He goes into rehab. They can put 2 and 2 together. He was in rehab. Now we know it was for opioid addiction. 20 years. I got to tell you, no way. He was not a 20-year addict. I've heard other commentators say that if he had been a 20-year addict, no, he would have been physically deteriorated. You just don't get onto opioids. I mean, it's something where your body needs more and more and more to get the same effect over time. And your body starts to break down because of all the drug in your system. And he just didn't exhibit signs of addiction. So I don't believe it. I really don't think that's where, I have a suspicion where his money went. And when this trial is over, because I want you guys to sit in the place of the jury, I will tell you where I think this money went, because I know more. I have facts that the jury doesn't know and probably will never know, but I will tell you that once the case is over, and I'll tell you why I believe these things, and give you the facts that unfortunately the jury will never hear. So that was Chris Wilson's testimony. He testified all about that. The one thing he was not allowed to testify to was, on the date that he goes to confront Alex Murdaugh, he leaves and he confronts him. Then he leaves, and he said he went to Arby's and got lunch, and then he goes back to his firm. And when he gets back there, he finds out later on that Alex had this whole botched suicide attempt so he could, he apparently hired this friend of his named Curtis Eddie Smith to come out and murder him so that his son Buster could get his $10 million life insurance policy. Well, it got butched up. He was shot, but it was just a graze. And I think Curtis kind of tried to get out of it. Like, he didn't really want to go through with it. And so Curtis isn't sitting in jail, charged with this botched suicide murder attempt. And Alex, that's one of the other charges that Alex is facing. Well, the judge did rule that this is not coming into the trial. No. So the jury's not going to know this unless they already know it independent of this, because these are a jury of his peers. Maybe they already know this, who knows? Some of them, because it was so difficult to seat a jury, a lot of these people already knew about the murders. They knew about Alex. They knew the whole thing. But, and the attorneys knew going into this, they weren't going to find, 12, 18 people that knew nothing about this. But they wanted to find 12 or 18 people that could say that they could sit and give Alex a fair trial, that they were willing to listen and weigh the evidence, and they could be fair and impartial. Doesn't mean they didn't know about any of this stuff. Just means they said they could be fair and impartial based on what they already knew. Okay, so then we hear from Tony Satterfield. Now, Tony, bless his heart, his mother was Gloria Satterfield. Now, he had already testified too during the in-camera hearing, but he comes back. He says he works in a hospital emergency room. He didn't say what he does. I have a feeling like maybe he's a clerk or something. He doesn't look like the sharpest tack in the drawer, which we already know, because he testified that he thought Alex was his lawyer. He and his brother, Michael. Now, he said Michael is a vulnerable, I can't say it, vulnerable adult, meaning he's probably got some sort of disability. And okay. Tony's mother, Gloria, was Alex's housekeeper for 20 plus years. She worked in the Murdoch household for $10 an hour, I might add. Anyway, so his family was very close to the Murdoch family, and at Gloria's funeral, because she fell on the Moselle property, and Alex said, hey, he comes up to the boys at the funeral and says, hey, I think my dog's probably swept your mom off her feet. And, she suffers this horrendous head injury, dies 3 weeks later in the hospital. He says, I want you to sue me, and my homeowner's insurance will cover it, and then you boys will be taken care of. So the boys know that, or they learned from Alex that there's a $505,000 policy, and that he's going to try to get them each about $100,000. So they're okay with that. They're like, okay, that's a lot of money to them. A lot of money. So they wait, and they kept checking in with Alex, and he says, "No, I can't represent you because there's a conflict, so I'm going to send you over to my friend Corey Fleming." So they sign up with Corey Fleming, but they still believe Alex is their lawyer. They're sending him the paperwork. Here's a medical bill. And Alex is like, "Go ahead, send it to me. I'll take care of it." And so they read in the press that there's been a settlement of the $500,000. What they don't know is that there was an umbrella policy for $3.5 million, $3.8 million, something like that. That was also settled. They never saw a dime of anybody. Alex just kept telling them, no, we're still working on it. It's progressing, maybe by the end of the year. So they finally, and then they start hearing all this stuff that it has settled, and in the press, and they finally end up hiring their own lawyer who sues Alex and the insurance company, and he ends up being made whole. He gets all of them. He and his brother get all their money, $4.3 million or whatever it is, plus a couple other million, as punishment, I guess. So they're made whole. Plus, what else? Oh, I just saw where some things need to go here. I was putting some special diamonds in here, and I just saw that I need to put some more. I'll have to find them. Anyway. Okay. So then we have the testimony of Jan Malinowski. He is the president of Palmetto State Bank, and we have also heard from him before about, the whole Palmetto State Bank scheme set up between Alex and Russell Lafitte, who was already found guilty in federal court for this whole scheme. So Jan is the current president of Palmetto State Bank. He testified everything he testified to during the in-camera hearing in front of the judge, including that Alex Murdoch, as of August of 2021, owed that bank $4.3 million. Yeah. Then on the stand was Mark Tinsley, the boat crash lawyer, and we had already heard from him during his in-camera, and he testified consistent with that. Nice guy. Oh my God, nice guys. It just seems like this is the kind of guy you want to be friends with, like, let's go have a drink, So anyway, very personable. He was contacted by the Beach family after Mallory's mother had gone down to the Archer Creek Bridge right after the accident, and it was all cordoned off, and she was told she could not go to the bridge because it was a crime scene. And then as she's returning to her vehicle, she sees Maggie Murdoch. She's driving a vehicle with Alex and his father in it, and they pull up, and they are escorted into the crime scene. And she's like, what? So she goes over and hires Mark Tinsley. Mark Tinsley testified in front of the jury yesterday that he was concerned that there was going to be a cover-up. So he wanted to get involved that day. And good thing he did. Yeah. He says that day I got involved. So, but here's the thing with Mark Tinsley. The defense attorney made a motion yesterday to disqualify Mark from testifying. He said the jury should not be allowed to hear his testimony because after the caretaker testified, Mrs. Smith, they call her Shelley, her name was Michelle, but they call her Shelley Smith. So Miss Shelley, after she testified, her daughter set up a GoFundMe page for her bravery, to reward her for her bravery, having testified against Alex Murdaugh. Well, the first person to donate on this page was Mark Tinsley. He put in $1,000 to the GoFundMe for, and it's very unusual to have it's so unique that I've never heard, nobody could find any cases where this has ever happened, where one witness donates money to another witness for their honesty and bravery. But he donated $1,000. Now her GoFundMe account right now has 215 donations to the tune of almost $9,000 for her bravery. I'm brave. Start me a GoFundMe page. Somebody start one for me. I'm brave. I'm testifying. I'm not testifying, but I'm talking about Alex Murdaugh. That makes me brave, doesn't it? Well, I don't live in South Carolina, so I'm not really that scared. But maybe if I was in South Carolina, I'd be scared. Anyhow, so Mark gets almost all the way through his testimony for the prosecution, and then they end for the day. He did wrap up the prosecution's testimony this morning, and then cross began, and that's where I stopped watching this morning while I was having my coffee. So I'll pick that up and watch the cross-examination, and I want to hear what they have to say about this GoFundMe donation, and what he has to say about why he made this strange donation. I mean, that's just weird. Okay. So one thing I wanted to talk about, a couple of things. The law firm, the CFO for the law firm testified in front of the jury and talked about all these different instances where they had to pay back the client for money Alex had stolen. Now, it makes you wonder, why didn't any of these plaintiffs complain? Like, why did they not say, hey, where's my money? Well, here's why. Because just as with the Satterfield case, he would tell them, hey, I'm going to try to get you $100,000, and or misrepresent how much money was really available, or misrepresent what the settlement really was. For example, he might say the settlement was $6 million when it was really $8 million, and he would just pocket the other $2 million for himself. So the plaintiffs were getting money, and they thought, it's probably a lot of money for those people. I mean, we're talking about Hampton County was known for their very large verdicts, but these are for the most part, not wealthy people. And when they see a little bit of money, they're like, oh, thank you, Jesus, and they take it and they go. They're not complaining. So that's why really none of these plaintiffs complained. Like Satterfield, he was a very simple person. He was told there's a $500,000 policy. After fees and costs, I'm going to get you and your brother about $100,000 each. And he would have been really happy with that, except Alice never gave it to him. And if Alex had given it to him, he probably would have gone away. We never heard another word about this, just like the other plaintiffs. That's why these plaintiffs were not complaining. The other thing I thought was interesting about Alex's properties and what they're worth, his Edisto Beach home, in 2022, someone made an offer on that property, cash offer of $955,000. And the Moselle property went up for sale in 2022 and was listed at $3.9 million for, it's a hunting lodge and 1,700 plus acres. It's pretty, plus a crime scene. We'll throw in a crime scene for you. Yeah, okay. I don't think it ever sold, but In any case, let's get to part 3 of the murder of Irene Garza. The road to justice. Now, we talked a little bit about what happened to her back on April 16th, 1960. She goes to church to make a confession. She never comes back home. They find her body later on. She'd been beaten, raped, and suffocated. It took them 57 years before her murder would face the consequences of his brutal crime. Yesterday we talked about the investigation in which they thought perhaps it was the priest that heard her confession, John Feet, and he was actually convicted of another similar crime, and he was sentenced, or he was implicated in another similar crime that ended up in a mistrial. And he ended up having to take a plea to aggravated assault and paid a $500 fine. Then the priesthood transfers him to an abbey, and he gets treatment for a troubled priest. Then he quits the priesthood and marries and has 3 kids. So, all right, let's talk about part 3, the slow road to justice. In 2002, 2 priests came forward to authorities and reported that Feet confessed to them that he had killed Garza. The technician who had administered Feet's polygraph test also came forward to contest reports that Feet had passed the polygraph he took in the wake of Garza's murder. Documentation showed the tests were actually inconclusive, though the technician assessed that Feet had failed. After a grand jury declined to indict Feet in 2004, the long-serving Hidalgo County District Attorney Rene Guerrera was hesitant to revisit the case. In 2014, Ricardo Rodriguez Jr. unseated Guerrera. One of Rodriguez's campaign promises was to pursue justice for Garza once and for all. Feet was arrested in February of 2016 and convicted of murder on December 7th of 2017. The prosecution asked for a symbolic sentence of 57 years, the number of years that had passed since Garza's death, but the jury came back with a sentence of life in prison. Feet died in prison on February 12th, 2020. So he served less than 3 years before his death, but he served life in prison. So sad. So sad. Yeah. Okay. Bless you, Father, for I have sinned. I'm not Catholic. I don't know what. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. Yes, let's go for a walk. Yeah. Oh, it's terrible. All right. That's the show for today. It's Friday. I am expecting in the mail today a really cool cross-stitch kit that I ordered because several of us are doing a cross-stitch along. And it's a Santa Claus in this white and pink Santa Claus outfit. And everything in the picture is this silvery white and pink. Oh my God. It's beautiful. You know I love pink. Pink is my jam. Okay. So... have a great weekend. I will be live Sunday at 11, barring any unforeseen circumstances, because I need to make it up to you guys and have a live. Yes. All right, guys. You can set me up a GoFundMe page on Sunday at 11 for my bravery. Yeah. Anyway, just kidding. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Love you all. Bye.